college finished up, and we're sitting on the couch watching the race at Kansas. And I was like, I really just feel like that's where I was supposed to be at. And she's like, why don't you call BJ back and see if that's an opportunity? He gladly said, let's try to, get you a suit, get you a helmet. You'll say you drove a race car one day and you can put it in your office. And we went out to Hickory Motor Speedway, which is just outside of Charlotte. And he brought Matt Tift, who was fourth in the Xfinity points at the time, out. And he shook the car down and put, the pole time down when he was testing. And, they're like, don't try to go as fast as him. We want to keep the car in one piece, but, go out there, have some fun. Before the day was over, we were only a tenth and a half off Matt's time. And they were like, you've never driven anything, right? Never. And I'm like, maybe some go-karts at the beach, like that you go play with, but nothing competitive or anything like that. And they're like, well, this is supposed to be like a fun day, but we think you got a shot to go do this. So if you guys got some sponsors behind you, some funding, we really think this is an opportunity for you to, take a chance in motorsports. And from that day on, that's been my full-time job. So never in a million years would have guessed it or believed it, but God had a plan for me to wind up, on that path. And 5 years later, we're still here trucking.
Hello and welcome to the latest episode of Georgie's Stripping the Dipping podcast. I'm your host, F1 Black. And our guest this week is battling it out for the ARCA Menards Series Championship on the road to Nascar. In this week's episode, I talk to Christian Rose, and as you'll have heard, we discuss his incredible entry into the sport, the thrill of being behind the wheel of a stock car, and what it takes to succeed, particularly on the mental side. So whether you're a huge fan of the US NASCAR scene, or like me, you've still got a lot to learn, this episode's for you. Without further ado, here's Christian. Christian, it's lovely to have you on the show. Can you tell us about your sort of earliest memories of motorsport, please?
Yeah, I would say as a kid, it's really what drew me to it. I picked up a remote control in my house that my mom and dad had bought me at the time, and I just loved anything with four wheels on it. Just a little boy that loved trucks, trains, cars. I mean, you can go through it. Typical little boy in every aspect, and it was a Jeff Gordon remote. And as a kid, I was flipping through the channels one day and just was able to associate that remote to Jeff, and became a diehard Jeff Gordon fan and really fell in love with the sport of NASCAR. I played, college baseball, and baseball was my route, but, I always followed it, was always taking vacations to the track. I didn't necessarily have anybody in my family that was involved in motorsports. So we would go to Daytona Beach every year, and my family would go to the beach and drop me off at the racetrack. So really that remote at like 3 or 4 years old is what kind of sparked it for me and led to, this world I'm living now.
We've had a few episodes speaking to colleagues that are massively into NASCAR. It's something that perhaps only diehard motorsport fans are into on the UK. But I can remember, I don't want to age you here, it's probably the late 90s, early noughties, that DuPont car of Jeff Gordon basically being what we would say in Europe is perhaps the Michael Schumacher of the sport, like dominant, absolutely, like outstanding. What was it that drew you to Jeff, like as a child watching the sport?
Well, I mean, at first it was a remote, and then as I grew into watching motorsports, just how professional he was and how he handled his business, how well spoken he was, and just winning. I mean, he went out there and he was the guy to beat. And I grew up watching him when there wasn't a lot of people who liked him. You either loved him or hated him, and he had a lot of haters because he was the best out there. And then predecessor was Jimmy Johnson, product of who he found and believed in, and it was the same thing for Jimmy. So I think I'm always been gravitated to winners in any sport. When you look at the best of the best, and something as an athlete growing up, like you want to kind of watch them and see what makes them so good and how they are able to do what they do. Something clearly makes them separate from the others, and that's really what drew me to Jeff.
No, I love that, and I think it's right to observe that in their era, winners aren't always loved. So I mentioned Michael Schumacher just then, but if you look at the likes of Lewis Hamilton a few years ago, or like in every era, you kind of love you love the underdog, and it's difficult to respect in that moment how professional, as you say, how talented those people are that win over and over again. Does that speak to your psyche as an individual? Do you see that in how you approach your own racing?
I do. I'm still new to it. I haven't been doing this my whole life, but we've had some success, but it's always constantly studying the grades, and that's what I did with baseball and really anything, is trying to not just in racing, but life, watch how they conduct themselves and how they are. Like Tom Brady, for football was really just the guy to watch. I mean, he brought a fire and a passion, and off the field, there's never been any, bad remarks about Tom or whatsoever. When you look at people like him, Derek Jeter for me, for baseball, Jeff Gordon, just class people, class human beings, and able to be very great at what they do. And I think a lot of the off the field and off the track stuff translates also onto the racetrack. And it's just cool to kind of watch and try to set my career up on that. Still got a long way to go to be as talented as those guys, but it's definitely part of trying to study and learn my craft as much as possible, be hopefully one day as good as they are.
Yeah, and I mean, we're a motorsport podcast, but I think what listeners need to know, because you just sort of like lightly alluded to baseball. You were like a former D1 athlete, which for, I guess if you're in the UK, we don't really have a strong university or college scene in terms of sport, but this is essentially like the highest you can go, as far as I understand, before you hit the pros. So you did that in baseball. What was your position, if you don't mind me asking?
Yeah, I was a submarine pitcher. So for anybody listening that's not familiar with baseball, or has watched a traditional pitcher and they throw overhand, I was the guy that would come in, and my windup, I would throw, basically my hand would scrape the mound, the dirt, underhand and away, sidearm, and come in late in the game and kind of try to shut a game down or shut the inning down to allow us to get to the last inning to win the baseball game. So that's not always how I threw. I had a shoulder injury my freshman year / sophomore year of high school, and the only way I was going to be able to continue my career without having a surgery that's probably going to deter it or even keep me from ever playing again was to try to adapt and learn how to throw in a different way, and it worked out. And the good Lord blessed me to be able to play 20 plus years of baseball, and a lot of that's translated in my life, and the structure that you learn from coaching and playing at that high level to be what I am in racing now.
There's so much to pick into there. I think when I watch people pitch in baseball, it does make my shoulders wince. The motion, it's intense, let's put it that way. But overcoming the injury, and you talked about that kind of coaching mindset about repetition and about like learning and constant evaluation of your technique. Just a bit of a side note, that shoulder issue, do you feel that when you're driving a car?
No, not really. It's something you can kind of see if you were standing in front of me, where I could show you like where my shoulder slouched, where it should be. But it was more along the lines of over the top. It didn't really even hurt to throw over top, but the issue was the velocity was gone. How hard I used to throw, I couldn't throw it anymore. It's because my body adapted with different muscles to be able to adapt to the game. But we see it all the time in the big leagues, and it's something that it's not a natural motion that when you put your body in a weird position, and not necessarily, I don't think I had the best coaches that, at that time that understood what was going on, and ended up hurting my shoulder a little bit. You only got so many bullets, and it just wears out to the point where your body, won't throw it as hard as it used to. And then the only opportunities are to get surgery, and the kind of surgery I was going to need was going to be labrum or rotator cuff. And the big leaguers, the professionals that get paid millions of dollars, the percentage of those guys coming back to anything what they were is like 47%. So a kid in high school, it was going to be probably career ending. So I had to learn how to adapt and throw something a little different. But regards to pain, no, nothing in the car or really daily. Just a tendency of a little weakness when I'm bench pressing or stuff like that.
I love that you know the percentage of people that come back in the professional ranks from that surgery. But I guess it's starting to paint a picture for our listeners about your character in terms of like you're studying, the odds, but also sort of the most successful in what you do. While you were at university, I'm just sort of reading a bit about your bio. You graduated with a degree with honors actually in hospitality. Do you see that there's a read across between that and sort of what made you sort of go down that route for a degree?
Yeah, I mean, I was very blessed to have a mother that allowed us to travel as a kid. So we got to travel all across, the major cities in America. And it was something that I've always loved to do, and traveling is still something that I'm very passionate about. Stayed in a lot of hotels, and it was something that I was looking into post-college to be, working at one of the islands, Turks and Caicos or somewhere like that, and trying to work my way up to be a general manager or something. The translation for me in racing really is the marketing side. Hospitality and marketing kind of go hand in hand, and you have to be able to market and sell yourself for sponsors. And a lot of sponsors, they care about performance, but they also care about, can you represent their brand? Can you speak to their brand? And are you very well spoken? And I believe that is something that's, definitely helped me in my career. But yeah, I mean, I got out of college and went to work for Marriott and was with them for about 3 months and working at front desk and bellhop and housekeeping. I mean, the night audit, you can go down. I did everything in a management program and realized pretty quickly that it wasn't something I wanted to do for the rest of my life. In college, it taught me that it was something, but in the real life, it just wasn't for me. And somehow ended up transitioning into driving race cars from there. So, but yeah, I mean, very grateful for the degree and the opportunity to learn it and study it. And it's still something I'm kind of passionate about.
Yeah, I can hear the passion, and my philosophy is that there's never a wasted minute of learning. And as you say, that hospitality, that marketing already seems to stand you in good stead in your new profession. So I can see, because I was just sort of looking at your latest results, that one of your primary partner is the Department of West Virginia Tourism. So how did that come about? And does that have a link to that sort of background in hospitality? Obviously, it's where you're from.
Yeah, I mean, it's part of it's from where I'm from, and really it was the sponsor that took a lot of hard work and a lot of being told no, and from them and a lot of partners and anybody listening that's in the motorsports, that's trying to be involved in it. I guess the biggest advice I can give is you're going to get told no 1,000 times, and I was ready to give up. We would spend a lot of money, and it was just not really shaking out to where we thought we were going to end up with a partner capable of wheeling us to the next ranks and the higher ranks. And my mom was the one that kept pushing me, and I'm very grateful for that. And the good Lord just had the stars align for it, that we got a call and they wanted to do it, and it worked. The numbers from tourism showed it. They had the highest amount of people visiting the state and viewership on their social channels and everything for the last 3 years, and they've broken that record. So very proud to say that we had a small part in that. And it's a lot about marketing that, and I think the hospitality side is we were all over the place. That, hey, if you want us to show up for a race car and promote the state, we'll be there. Whether it was at baseball games or the state fair in West Virginia or local festivals, like we were willing to take that step. And I think that's something that you got to do for your partners, because it's not a one-way street. You need the funding to go racing, but you also need to represent your partners so they're getting something out of it and feel the value out of it. And I think a lot of racers at times don't understand that, and that's something that we've always kind of taken and by storm and say, look, we'll promote the heck out of it. We're going to go take that next step and push and push and push and do everything to deliver for you guys as much as you are for us.
Those practical steps, I hadn't even thought about it. And I'm really keen to talk a bit about family in a minute. And, I've got 2 young sons, and just thinking about, turning up at a fair or, whatever, a show, and just a really bright, colourful, powerful car just in there, it would just pique their interest as well as mine, to be honest. It sounds like you work extremely hard for your sponsors. You said, kind of, again, not nonchalantly, but perhaps self-deprecatingly, you found your way from 3 months in hospitality into motorsport. How do you make that transition from deciding that hospitality as a sort of full-time career isn't for you to where you sit today? Tell us a bit about that journey.
Yeah, I mean, so I'm a big believer in God and my faith, and at times I probably haven't been as much as I should have been, but the more and more I've gone through life and having kids, it's become a forefront of who I am and who I'm trying to be, and I think He had a plan for it. I would have never guessed it in a million years that I'd be driving a race car for a living. Ultimately, it led me to Charlotte, North Carolina, which if you're going to race in America, that's where you got to be at. And that's where I met my wife. And if I didn't chase this dream, I wouldn't have her in my life or my kids. So just so many really cool things have happened from it. But long story short, I snuck in the garage as a kid in Daytona and met BJ McLeod, who's driven in the Cup Series, Xfinity Truck Series. And when I was talking about how to become a pit crew guy, because a lot of former athletes try to get involved in the sport, and that's where they get these guys to stay competitive and as a full-time job. I say that's something I want to keep that competitive edge and still keep going on my athletic career. And BJ was like, "Why don't you try to drive it?" My mom said no originally, and college finished up, and we're sitting on the couch watching the race at Kansas, and I was like, I really just feel like that's where I was supposed to be at. And she's like, "Why don't you call BJ back and see if that's an opportunity?" He gladly said, "Let's try to get you a suit, get you a helmet. You'll say you drove a race car one day, and you can put it in your office." And we went out to Hickory Motor Speedway, which is just outside of Charlotte. and he brought Matt Tifft, who was fourth in the Xfinity points at the time, out, and he shook the car down and put the pole time down when he was testing. And they're like, don't try to go as fast as him. We want to keep the car in one piece, but go out there, have some fun. Before the day was over, we were only a tenth and a half off Matt's time. And they were like, you've never driven anything, right? Never. And I'm like, maybe some go-karts at the beach, like that you go play with, but nothing competitive or anything like that. And they're like, well, this was supposed to be like a fun day, but we think you got a shot to go do this. So if you guys got some sponsors behind you and some funding, we really think this is an opportunity for you to, take a chance in motorsports. And from that day on, that's been my full-time job. So never in a million years would have guessed it or believed it, but God had a plan for me to wind up, on that path. And 5 years later, we're still here trucking.
I mean, that is a phenomenal story, because we've had many guests on the show that with a motorsport background, and often they get into the sport, or increasingly at a really young age, and it's been something that's been their sort of sole focus. But you're telling me that, okay, we've all been go-karting and done a bit of sort of fun. You got into the car and you were a tenth and a half off of someone that was high up in the Xfinity Point Series, which for those that don't know is, I suppose, if you know Formula 2 or Indy Light.
Yeah, say Formula 2.
It's like the people that are just about to make it into NASCAR. I mean, is that what do you put that down to? Did you ever know that you had this talent for driving? Did you have a suspicion? Is it a natural talent? What do you think it is?
I think a lot of it was, we talk about, watching and analyzing a lot of sports and stuff. I grew up watching every race. I grew up watching every practice, every happy hour, every qualifying session. Like, I never missed it from the time I was probably 10 years old till that age at 23 when I first got in a race car. And I knew the lingo and I understood what drivers were talking about in a way. And I think a lot of that translated into what, led out to the racetrack. Now, I think some of it was, just fearless and being younger and just wanting to put some time down. But I think a lot of it came from watching for years of what these guys had done. And I really thought we'd kind of go scream out to the top from there. I got a wake-up call in the first couple of races, and then we've gotten better and better and competed for wins and finished third in the points last year in the ARCA Menards series, and we're sitting fourth this year where, we just haven't had luck this year. I think we would be very well in contention for the championship, but we've had a lot of stuff out of our control happen, and in racing seasons and any sport, you're going to have stuff that happens like that. So, but I think a lot of it was just analyzing and studying and just being able to put the product from what I saw into the race car that day.
I'm sure there's a great degree of truth to that. I also think you're speaking with a great deal of humility as well, because to be a tenth and a half within a professional driver on your first, that's incredible. I mean, so we've had guests from all sorts of motorsport. Recently we've had quite a few drift races on, but Formula One, more sports car stuff. So in NASCAR, how are you trying to drive the car? My only understanding as a European is that they're powerful and they're heavy. Is that true? I mean,
yeah.
What are you trying to do to get the fastest time?
Yeah, I mean, it's a very interesting style of racing. IndyCar, Formula One, like they're basically accelerated go-karts at the highest level possible, and at such a precision focused, like you have to be on your game at every point. NASCAR is the same way. The only difference is that you're driving. The best way I can say is if you took a taxi cab, put 4-ball tires on it, dropped a V8 motor in it, cranked it up, and said, "Hey, go turn," and see how fast you can go. That's what you're driving. And the whole concept, I believe, from NASCAR was like, let's make these things very hard to drive, make them so that it shows who has the talent in that car better than the other guys. What's it supposed to be with stock car? They're all supposed to be similar. As any other, motorsports background or racing, it's not. The teams that have the most money are able to work on aerodynamics and stuff like that have fed into the sport that allow the teams with the biggest budgets to be the fastest. However, it does rely a lot on driver. You can put a average driver in the best stuff and they're going to run 15th, and you can put a really good driver in a 30th place car and they'll find a way to finish in the top 10. The biggest thing with stock car racing is that you're trying to you learn how to use the brake pedal, get on it hard while you're straight. Because if you're in the corners trying to brake, the car's not going to turn. So it's how hard to get on the brake, how hard to modulate it, and then throttle control of how hard you can get in the throttle without slipping the right rear tire. Because every time you slip the tires, you lose speed, the tires wear out. So it's tire management, brake management. The more brake heat you build, the worse the car is going to drive through building heat in the tires. So it comes down to a lot of different things the driver can, manage. But you're basically wrestling around a 3,500-pound race car that doesn't want to turn at 200 miles an hour every corner you go into.
I'll admit I'm a bit of a novice because, I've been obsessed with Formula One since my childhood. But like in recent years, they've invited Kimi Raikkonen and Jenson Button to participate. And, those guys are elite Formula One drivers. They've stepped into NASCAR and they haven't been at the front of the field. They've admitted that while they're talented drivers, they find it difficult. And it does seem like it's a completely different skill set. What would you say your sort of strongest, I mean, maybe you're all around, but what's your strongest attribute, would you say, compared to your competitors?
Yeah, I would say tracks that are worn out, tire management, places that we go where it's like, the best way to say it is if you got a freshly paved racetrack or newer asphalt that's not going to wear tires as much, you can get on that throttle as hard as possible, and the banking and the corners are going to hold you. Places when you go like North Wilkesboro before they repaved it, or Iowa before they repaved it, or Nashville Fairgrounds, stuff like that, the track's very abrasive. Darlington's that way. So you can get on your tires hard for 3 or 4 laps and it's going to work. You're going to pay a price big time after about 10 laps. And it's all about who can go fast, but also go slow at the same time. Don't slide the rear out from the car, staying very controlled in it, being very, trying to find the right word. Conservative is not really the right word, but consistent on, hitting your marks. Because if you annoy the tires or get them angry, you're going to fall off 8, 9 second a lap, 8 tenths, 9 tenths second a lap in 30 laps into the run. So you'll see guys like Jeff Gordon back in his prime. He would just ride his pace and let guys go, and they think they're Superman. And 25 laps later, they are flying by them, and they're just running the same pace they were running before. Those guys just went out there and burned their stuff up. So it's a very interesting way to look at it. Is like you want to go fast. That's the whole point, but it's also who can use their mind and mental craft on it as well. Plus keeping the speed in the car. And I think that's one thing that I'm very good at, and I've been good at tracks like that. And also super speedway racing. When you look at Daytona and Talladega, like we're in a draft of 40 cars and we're shoving each other at 200 miles an hour. We're bump drafting. A lot of it's trying to understand when people are getting too aggressive with the bump draft, because it takes one car to hit somebody hard enough, and you'll see it at the end of every one of those races. It's time to go. And they'll turn somebody around, and in front of 40 cars at 200 miles an hour, you're going to wreck probably 20 or 25 of them. So having the understanding of when things are getting too aggressive to get out of the draft, like we did at Daytona this year, we took the green, and on lap 3, I realized everybody's pushing way too hard, way too early. So I dropped down to the apron, let the pack go, fell in at the back of the pack, and we went down the next corner, and they wrecked 20 cars. And it was right where we were running. So it's having an understanding of how aggressive the draft is and how to work the air and what line to be in, because it all comes down to jumping in the right line and getting the momentum and shoved out past the cars that are on the bottom or the top, and understanding how to block and work those racetracks. And it's a lot of skill, there's a lot of luck involved in those races, but there's also a lot of skill in understanding what's going on, because anybody can win them. But if you look at somebody like Denny Hamlin, who's won the Daytona 500, I think 3 times in a row or 2 times in a row in 3 and 4 years, he drops out of the draft every time when they're about to wreck. He knows how to get in the right line. He always finds himself out front. It's an art to be able to work it. Dale Earnhardt Jr. was one of the best at doing it. Jeff Gordon was one of the best at his career at doing it. Dale Sr. was probably the best in his career at doing it. And right now, Austin Hill's right there with it. So there's 4 or 5 guys that really can figure that art of racing out and be really good at it. And then there's guys like Kyle Larson, who I'm a big fan of right now, who has run probably 25 speedway races, and I think he's wrecked in like 22 of them. And it's just, he's had speed. It's just getting caught in the wrong line and getting caught in that big wreck.
It speaks to a talent to have the mental bandwidth while you're driving, as you say, at 200 miles an hour, and you're driving sort of a huge monster, to be able to think critically. I mean, a small but completely like minuscule example. Let's say I'm playing football with my friends and someone tackles me and I get annoyed. I'm no longer thinking about how to be the best footballer. I'm probably going to commit a foul like at the next moment.
Right.
You're bump drafting at 200 miles an hour. You're kind of like thinking about winning the race. I'm sure that there are emotions flying around, or at least there's a lot of stress on your body and on your mind. Like, how do you keep that calm and that focus?
Well, I think that's the art of it, is trying to control your emotions, which is something I struggle with at short track racing. When somebody cuts you off on an interstate or the road, any road, like you get frustrated. But super speedway racing, it's all about, trying to position yourself the entire race to get track position and get up front. You can get wrecked up front. I've seen their leader get turned around in front of the field and wreck everybody. And I've seen the last place car get in the big wreck. I mean, there's really no hiding it, but it's also trying to understand and use the mental awareness of, hey, this guy's pushing me too hard. I don't want him on my bumper. I'm going to shove out of line or drop out of line, and, understand what's going on around you. And then also trying to slow it down. It sounds crazy when you're going 200 miles an hour, but if you can slow the process down and understand how to operate, in less chaos, that is probably the best way, in my opinion, to focus in on what you're doing and make things kind of come to you slower at 200 miles an hour, which sounds crazy, but that's really the art of it, I believe. And it's the same thing. I translated that from baseball. It's like if you get too fast in the game, you're going to be all over the place. If you can find how to control your breathing and slow down and make the game go at your pace, you're going to play a lot better. I'm sure it's the same thing with soccer or football. Any sport breaks down in a way that if you can really slow yourself down when everybody else is just trying to go 1,000 miles an hour, I've got a feeling you're probably going to be one of the better ones on the field.
I also have a feeling that you could probably write that down, put some fancy words in it, call it sports psychology, and make a few dollars there. It is about that elite mindset. So you've got four. You're in fourth in the championship. You've got 6 rounds to go, as far as I can tell, and you're less than 100 points off the lead. It looks like an incredibly competitive series where, if I'm looking, there's sort of 7 drivers above 500 points, and the lead is only on 635. So, so I guess there's all within 110 points. What do you assess your chances are of being top 3 again this season, and what will it come down to?
Yeah, I think we can get to top 3. I think we're going to need some help. With the 15 car, I think, there's races where we're better than him, and there's races where he's better than us. What it's all broken down to really is that we have had some really big adversity against us this year. We were leading the points after Talladega, and we went to Dover, and we blew a right front tire and hit the wall at about 160 miles an hour and finished 25th. We went to Charlotte. We had a mechanical failure. Same thing, hit the fence. Just stuff that's been out of our control. We got taken out this weekend by a driver that, I'm not going to say much on, but she lost her cool and just wrecked us for no reason. And there's been a lot of that's kind of happened this year. We went to Indianapolis, had the same thing, got taken out by a driver that was driving way over their head. Or I think we'd be second in the points, somewhere around 25 points out of it. So a lot of it's coming down to finishing the races and getting the most out of your car, but also being smart enough and cognizant enough not to put yourself in a position to end up destroyed. And that's really the key of it over the course of a 20 race season where we're running for points and not like a playoff bracket, that you've got to find a way to finish and finish all the races. Because the 25th, when the guys you're racing against finish 3rd and 4th, it's a 20-point swing, and you do that 4 or 5 times, you find yourself where we're at about 90 points back. So unfortunately, a lot of it's been out of our hands and out of our control. But the positive is that we've had a lot of speed in a lot of those places where we have had those issues. So you try to take the positives out of it and use that for these next 6 races and go do our job and keep showing up with the same mentality and pace. And at some point, the stars will align and those things will go your way.
Well, we'll continue to root for you here at Stripping the Dipping, and all the best of luck. I think your season finishes not that far away. It's sort of like the 9th of October or something. So those races seem to be coming thick and fast. Do you get a bit of time off? Are they every other week, or how does it fit together?
With the ARCA schedule, very early, there's a couple spans where we're 3 weeks off at a time. But once we hit about June, it's about every week on. You might get a week off, I think twice or 3 times maybe. But it's very competitive every single week, and you're on the road. We'll get back. We'll have debrief meetings and competition meetings on Monday, and Tuesday we'll be doing simulator time and film study. And Wednesday I'll stay home with the family, and then Thursday typically is pack the bags and get on the plane and show up, sleep in a hotel, and then wake up and race and practice on Friday, and then race Saturday and fly back home, and it's rinse and repeat. So we're on the road a lot, but that's also part of it, is trying to, I think a lot of people can get mentally worn out and a lot of physically tired from it, because it does wear you out, and in a lot of ways. And it's a grueling schedule, but if you want to be competitive, it's the same thing as I use golf as an example. Golf's a sport that if anybody goes out and plays it 5 times a week, they're probably going to be pretty good. If you play it 1 time out of every 4 months and you play against a guy that's been doing it 3 times a week, you're probably going to get your butt kicked. And that's the same thing with racing. A lot of our drivers are racing a late model. They'll race a late model on Friday, race the ARCA car on Saturday, and then be in a truck on Saturday night, and they're racing 3-4 times a week. And that's where a lot of the sponsorship and all this comes into. That's where we want to be at. You want a lot of these drivers run 50 to 60 times a year. And if you do the math, there's only 52 weeks in a year. So they're racing every single week, and it's all about working on their craft and how to set guys up to pass and how to. It's a very difficult thing to do, to be at that pace and speed and be faster than somebody, but it's a whole different art to pass somebody and learn how to use your bumper and move them out of the way, but not wreck them. So as grueling as it is, I do enjoy the part where we're racing every week because it kind of plays in our hands of getting that seat time.
I mean, an initial reflection when you said use your bumper to move people out of the way, it feels really alien to us here on the other side of the pond. And you probably, I don't know, you might watch clips from Formula One and where they make the slightest of contacts, the front wing falls off and
Yep.
they're retired. It must just feel a little
they're
bit
meant
pathetic.
for speed. Yep, they are meant for speed, not for bumper cars. That's for sure.
Yeah, I mean, so you describe what is really a grueling schedule, the travel on its own, if you weren't also kind of performing, physically, athletically, and mentally, throughout the week. How do you balance that? You mentioned you're sort of home on a Wednesday with the family. So how do you kind of keep a balance and maintain that? You mentioned that sort of sustainable energy through the season.
It's difficult. I mean, there are times where you're exhausted and having children and a wife and trying to keep up with full-time house responsibilities and being a husband and father. It's definitely tough. But I look at it as a way that I get to do something for a living that I wouldn't trade for the world. I could be sitting at a desk and working in a cubicle and not really enjoying what I do. I thoroughly enjoy what I do. I get a lot of time off during the week. I get a lot of time off on the weekends. In the off season, I get 2.5, 3 months of off time to be with my family and get to really do what I want to do when I want to. So when you keep that in your mind and you're athletically, you're staying moving, you're in the gym or going out for a run, it really helps your mental state on it. And then also the competitive side. It's like, I love showing up and competing. It's something I've done for 20 plus, almost 30 years of my life now. Definitely 25 years of my life. And it's the showing up and the, ability to wash away a bad race and be like, all right, well, next week's a new race. Let's go get it. You never know what's going to happen. You never know how the cars are going to play out. And I love that. It's the adrenaline packed feeling of hopping in a race car. And when the pace car drops off, knowing that you're about to go through the gears and sail it off in a corner at 200 miles an hour and have 30 guys out there running for the same spot you are and chasing the same thing that you're chasing with that trophy. So, you're trying to find the time at home on Wednesdays to be with my son and my wife and kind of relax a little bit, but also the time in the gym and studying and prep and all the stuff that just kind of feeds into, remembering the reasons that you love to do something.
I must assure you that I'm extremely fit, of course, but I get an elevated heart rate just watching the start of a race and just thinking about what's about to happen. But you're in the car, as you say, the pace car drops off and off you go. How would you describe, could you describe that state? What does it feel like? Like for a civilian like us, is there anything else in life that or similar or feels a certain way?
I can't compare it for anybody else. And I think there is for everybody else. I think everybody's got a passion and that feeling they have when they get to do that passion. When it comes to the adrenaline side, I'm not sure there's much more that can compare to it other than being like a spec ops, elite soldiers going out to battle or somebody jumping out of a helicopter or skydiving. That's about the only thing I think that would really compare to it. Or being a firefighter and running into a burning building or something like that. But there's nothing like it. I mean, it's like your heart's racing 1,000 miles an hour, whether you've done it one time or 1,000 times, you're ready to roll. And knowing that, every lap you make, you can make a mistake and hurt yourself or, put yourself in a bad spot to possibly lose your life at times. And, it's an adrenaline feeling like no other. You're out there, one with the race car, and you got to hit your marks and be mentally locked in from the moment that flag waves to the last flag waves. And you don't get a chance to really mentally reset. It's like you're 3 hours or whatever that duration of that race might be of being mentally and physically locked into you and that race car. And it's everything else in my life fades away. And that's what I love about it. If there's any stress in my life or any pressure in my life or anything that's going on, at the moment I climb in that race car and put my helmet on and we roll off pit road, everything fades away, but just that race car and that race. So that adrenaline, that feeling is what keeps me going. And I've told my wife and the people in the racing industry, when I lose that feeling and don't have that anymore, that'll be the day I walk away from it. But I don't see that happening anytime soon. And it's something that, keeps me every day waking up and passionate about what I love and happy and fired up to go wake up and go chase my dream.
I mean, you can hear the passion and the energy, and you're not even sort of in the car at the moment. So, it's incredible. And you talked a bit about the future. So what's the dream? You've I think you've done a bit of Craftsman here and there, but like you talked a little bit about those other drivers that are competing in multiple series. Like, what would be the ideal finish for this season, and where would you see yourself in a few years' time?
Yeah, I would say for this season that it's go finish strong. Let's try to click off as many top fives as we can, and put ourselves in position to win a race if we can, and do the most we can. We race against two cars out there. I'd say the 18 and 28 car that their budgets are far exceeding anybody else in the sport. So it's very hard unless they have a problem to go beat them. We can run with them at times, but I mean they are a NASCAR Cup Series team is where their cars are coming out of, and you're fighting the best engineers and the best wind tunnel time and everything. It's very difficult. So running in the top five is a win for a lot of these teams out there. The goal would be 4 or 5 years from now, hopefully, and the reason I tell everybody this is like it's my goal, and people can laugh at it or whatever it is, but I would love to be a Cup Series driver, compete for a championship at the top level. I think if anybody's doing this in America in motorsports just to make money or to claim that race car driver, I think you're doing it for the wrong reason. I'm solely out here to go try to win a Cup Series championship and say I'm one of the best in this country that does it. Whether that happens or not, there's a lot of things that are going to have to happen. I've got to get a lot better in the race car, and there's a lot of on and off track things that got to fall into place for that to happen. But very confident we'll be making jumps up, climbing a ladder here in the next year, and hopefully keep continuing to climbing that ladder. So hopefully we'll put ourselves in position in 3 to 4 years to get that opportunity. If we don't, I'm more than happy and okay with making a living, driving an Xfinity car or a truck, whatever that might be, in, to my mid 40s.
All sportsmen that we tend to interview have an ambition, have a kind of big goal. And without that, I wonder if actually they would be who they are. So
Absolutely.
it sounds like that's what drives you, and the best of luck. And also, this is the sort of time of year when, obviously we love having guests like you on the show, but they can't tell us everything that perhaps they're working on behind the scenes. So we'll keep our fingers crossed. I don't know anything about what's going on behind the scenes, but I just have a sneaking feeling, who knows?
Yeah, we got some stuff working. Hopefully here in the next 10 to 20 days, we'll be able to announce a lot of really cool things that are coming for 2025. I'm excited about it. It's hard for me not to tell anybody what's going on, but I'm excited to finish the season strong and hopefully carry that in the momentum for what we're going to do in 25. But yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is a crazy season. There's all kinds of stuff. I hear stuff every day from the industry and where people are going and what's happening. And it's very interesting when I was a fan, like you are guessing, but being in the industry, you hear about it way before it happens. Like I've known a lot of things that were coming and happening, whether it's been in our building or other buildings. And it's wild to see it get announced and how everybody reacts to it, and knowing that you've known it for 4 or 5 weeks and it's everything you have to not be able to put it out there. So it's pretty crazy.
Well, discretion is the better part of valor, as I think we used to say in the UK, and it sounds like you're keeping some cards close to your chest, which is fantastic, and we'll keep an eye on your social media. Before we kind of bring the show to a close, I have a bit of a kind of fan question, which is, you talked at the beginning about being sort of taken in by that sort of Jeff Gordon, as a child, watching him really dominate the series. Have you had the opportunity in your career thus far to meet the guy, see him around the industry?
Yeah, I mean, not Jeff in particular. I've met him a ton as a fan. I was a big diecast fan. That's what I used to go chase Jeff with. I mean, I've got every car that he's ever run, paint scheme wise, and I probably spent way more money than I probably ever should have as a kid growing up on it. But I met him so many times as a fan, and I'm very much looking forward to that opportunity when I do get to meet him and let him know that, I probably never meet my wife or have my kid if it wasn't for him, because I would have never had the passion to get into motorsports. So really his career is what drove me to it, and it led me to so many more things in my life that, I couldn't even imagine. So, but the cool thing is I've gotten to be around so many really cool drivers. Like at AM Racing, we've had Joey Logano, who's a 2-time Cup Series champion. We've had Josh Berry in the car. I've gotten to be teammates with Josh at another team before. Chase Briscoe, who's won a Cup race and so many races up and down the platforms. Larry McReynolds, somebody I've watched on TV, was the guy that used to own the building I used to race out of. I can go down the list. It's been pretty cool to see these guys and get to learn a little bit about them. And the crazy thing is, as a fan, we idolize and see them as, a different kind of light, right? You learn that they're just a human being just like you are, and it's cool to see their day-to-day lives and who they actually are. And there's also drivers that that I used to idolize and stuff that you hear things and see things, and it also kind of turns you off to who they were and who they actually are. And it's definitely different being in the motorsports industry versus actually being a fan of it. So very thankful to be in it and be around so many people that are highly successful and everything that they've done in their careers. But also it's been really cool to realize that everybody puts their pants on the same way, and everybody goes through life in the same way, just in a different light. So it's been really cool and eye-opening to see a lot of that firsthand.
It sounds surreal on the one hand, but as you say, eye-opening, and yeah, you start to realize these people are human beings like the rest of us, even if they're phenomenal at what they do. Another question, which sort of relates to the fact that you've been doing sort of, I guess, the road to NASCAR, if we could call it that. But have you ever thought about other series or other types of car? Have you ever set foot or put the gas down in any other type of vehicle?
Yeah, I mean, I've gotten. I don't know if there's any dirt racing in Europe or the UK, and that's something a lot of drivers here that are really good come from. Kyle Larson, in my opinion, is arguably the greatest talent in the world, and anything he gets in, whether it's an IndyCar, Cup car, dirt car, he finds a way to win. He's just a special talent in a lot of ways, and a lot of that came from his dirt background, running sprint cars, which are just crazy in my opinion. They're the one car that I probably would never want to get into because there's so many drivers that get hurt or killed in them, and it's so easy to make a mistake. And when you make a mistake in those things, you're flipping end over end. There's not really hitting something. A lot of times you see them actually leave the racetrack and flip into the stands, or they're just insane to watch. The horsepower they have, and to be drifting them around dirt's insane. But we've gotten to run dirt modified a lot with Austin Wayne Self in the AM program, and I love the dirt stuff. It's like driving on ice, and it's teaching you a whole different aspect that the cars change in racing. In dirt racing, the track changes. So when you start the day, the track's going to be completely different than where you are at the end of the race. So you got to learn how to move your line around. You might be working really good on the bottom, and you have to learn how to run the top towards the end of the race, or vice versa, or learn how to throttle up different points and brake at different points because of the way the dirt's changing. It's really a cool aspect that teaches and translates to asphalt racing. That they're the guys that, if you watch Kyle Larson or Tyler Reddick or Jesse Love or some of the best names in the sport in asphalt racing, they're the first guys to go up to the top and are ripping right an inch off the wall, or they're the first guys to go find where nobody else is driving, because that's what dirt racing teaches you, how to go find speed where nobody else can. So I've gotten to do a lot of that. I would love to maybe one day do what Larson did, is run an Indy double, which is just a crazy thing to do. You're running an Indy 500 and 11 o'clock in the morning till 2 o'clock, and you hop on a helicopter or jet and you fly down to Charlotte and you drive 600 miles in a Coke 600. So you're running 1,100 miles in a day in two completely different race cars, one that is basically as closely comparable to an F1 car, and then the other one in a souped up taxi cab, and doing it at 1,100 miles and, losing a lot of fluid and not being able to eat a ton. It's a crazy, crazy ambition to watch what Larson did and to show how talented he was. I thought he was probably going to have a shot to win that race. He's running in the top 5, never been in an Indy car, and goes out there and he's competing for the win and arguably the biggest race in America. So, that would be a goal. F1 is just crazy. I would love to, sit in one and just see what it feels like. But, that's a very expensive and different kind of aspect. But honestly, anything, the Rolex 24, the 24 hours of Daytona, the Baja, stuff like that. I mean, those are things that any racer, I believe, would kill to have those opportunities to go get an opportunity to do.
I've just come back from holiday in Wales. It's about 250 miles from where I live. And I didn't want to drive that far. So driving 1,100 miles in a day, at that speed, you got to, I think my brain would run out. I think I'd be insane. Like, no.
It is insane. It's one of the coolest things. And he's going to do it again next year. They announced that. I don't know if you followed it at all, but they ended up raining in Indianapolis and started the race way later. So he ended up, and it rained out the Coke 600 after halfway. So they called the race after halfway. So by the time he got to Charlotte, he was just about to go jump in. He was on pit wall about to jump in the race car. They had already started and run half the race, and they had a driver fill in for him, and it rained and washed the race out. So he's like, I'm going to go back next year, and hopefully there's not going to be rain and we can do the real thing. So but just a crazy, crazy wave of emotion day. Two completely different aspects of racing, two completely different styles of racing, and just really cool to watch a driver. I've only seen it once with Kurt Busch in 2014 and Tony Stewart's done it and Robbie Gordon. Those are the only four I think that have actually attempted to do it.
The word old school probably gets bandied around a lot, but we had Mario Andretti on the show a couple of years ago. And
Yep.
when you look at his career, he drove everything. And
Absolutely.
there was a kind of talent that maybe these days you're either incentivized not to drive everything or it just was really hard and he made it look easier. But that's fascinating to see, as you say, with Carl Larson and those others.
Yeah, I mean, and Mario is one of those guys that he's won in everything, not just driven, and he's won in everything. So
Yeah.
it's incredibly difficult. I don't think anybody understands that doesn't follow motorsports. Playing a sport and winning is a team sport, and winning is a lot easier. It's still hard, but when it's an individual driving a car, it's a team sport still. But when you have an individual in that race car, it determines so much that happens, and then mechanical failures and motor failures, and people that can wreck you out of a race. There's so many factors. Pit crew, you have to have the best pit stops, the best engineers, the best adjustments. You have to have so many things go your way, whether it's a go-kart or whether it's an F1 race or whether it's there's no room for error. You cannot make a mistake at the highest levels of motorsport to win a race, and it's very difficult to do. So when you look at somebody like Mario or Jeff Gordon or Larson or Max or Lewis and those guys, what's so incredible is, yes, people getting tired of seeing them win, but not recognizing how hard it is to win and how many things have to go right, and then watch them do it time after time is something that still fascinates me, and how good they are at what they do.
Yeah, and I think, without getting too salty, there have been drivers that kind of look at the very front drivers and maybe naturally you feel a little bit resentful. I mean, you can convert that into motivation, or you can kind of be a bit negative about them and say, oh, well, if I had the fastest car, I'd win. But then you see those drivers given the fastest car and they aren't necessarily capable of executing. In Formula One, without throwing them under the bus, you're looking at Lando Norris. Looks like McLaren have probably had the fastest car for the last 6 races, and they've won one race with him and one with the other, and the others they've kind of thrown away a little bit. So, yeah, as you say, at that top level to be consistent is incredibly difficult.
Yeah. I mean, the difference is somebody like a Jeff Gordon or Larson or a Lewis Hamilton or those guys, they'll take a 10th place car and win in it. Or they'll take a 15th place car and find a way to run 5th, to where most drivers are going to run 20th in a 15th place car. Just the talent they got to get the most of their equipment. Kyle Busch is one of those guys, he will hop into anything and wheel the heck out of it. And I've watched him win a race at Pocono a couple years ago where he burned the clutch out of it, did not have 4th gear, and still found a way to win that race, which is just, when you look at the kind of stuff that those guys can do, most people would panic or freak out or be like, the race is done. And they're like, well, we'll find a way. Just get me going and we're going to win this race. So just incredible talents. And it's all mental. I believe a lot of it's mental, a lot of it's skill, but a lot of it's having that mental fortitude to not let adversity take you out of the picture.
You sort of alluded earlier, and I did wonder when you said it, is it any coincidence that one of your strengths is keeping a cool head, and then you pointed to that kind of childhood hero, Jeff Gordon, that had a similar attribute.
Absolutely.
So we wish you the very best for the rest of the season. Where can our listeners find you on social media? Where's the best place to follow you?
Yeah, Christian Rose Racing. It should be on all the Instagram, Twitter, TikTok. We just started our TikTok, Facebook. You can keep up with all the stuff we're doing. And hey, man, I hope one day we get to cross the pond and go do some racing over there. And the NASCAR Euro Series is something I'd love to do. Towards the back half of my career, stuff like that. So you never know. Maybe we'll be over there trying to run something, and if not, at least come over there and see some cool racing, because I think racing is cool in every aspect. Doesn't matter what it is, whether it's F1 or NASCAR or what SVG has done since coming over from supercars in Australia. It's still an incredible talent to get in and drive something, no matter what it is. So hopefully one day we'll get over there and get to catch up with you guys.
Absolutely. And speaking with absolutely zero authority, we'd welcome you with open arms in Europe. So do keep us posted on those exploits, but we'll follow you on Christian Rose Racing. And you've done well to keep that consistent handle, because I think there's so many people saying, on Instagram it's this, on Twitter it's that. Yeah, no, you've done well.
Just try to make it easy. That's the best way.
Hopefully you didn't bump anyone out of the way with your, to make room. But there we are. Look, is there any final message you'd like to give our listeners? Anything to cap off what really fascinating? If you're really grateful to have you, anything else you'd like to add before we go?
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I would really add is, anybody listening and it doesn't matter what age you are, if there's a place in motorsports you want to be at or a place in life that you want to be at, it doesn't matter if it's, being a chef or a lawyer, whatever that might look like in life. You'll never get there if you don't jump in. You got to go chase your dreams. It's not going to come to you. And if you work hard, you put your faith in God, and you lead the right life, I believe a lot of those things will happen, and you'll find your place. So I always wish I had people. I was very thankful my mother taught me that at a young age, and I've really been fortunate to work with so many people that have really kind of helped me get to those points. So don't be afraid to ask for help and go chase your dreams, but you got to jump in. It's always going to be a reason why life's going to keep you from doing it. It's always never going to be the right time. So if you're always waiting on the right time, that's probably not going to happen to you. You just got to go and dive in with both feet and go chase it and see where you go.
You can't be that motivational at 9 p.m. in the UK. You've made me sort of like wake back up. I've got to apply for 100 jobs and sort of pursue my dreams. Christian, it's been a real pleasure to have you on the show. Thank you so much for your time, and best of luck with school pickup, which I know isn't always easy to navigate, particularly if you're a racing driver. Maybe you're sort of looking for a parking space. I don't know.
I'm looking forward to it. Not rushing his life away, but I'm definitely looking forward to being the pickup dad at one point here. So thank fantastic. You guys. I really appreciate the time, appreciate the outlet, and love what you guys do for the motorsports community. So thank you so much for the time.
Lovely to have you. Well, look, thanks to Christian Rose. Find him at Christian Rose Racing on all good social media purveyors. This has been F1 Blag. Thanks for joining us for another fantastic episode. If you've got this far through, please give us a 5-star rating, a thumbs up, and more important than not, give us a comment. We'd love your feedback on the episode and suggestions for future guests. But until next time, I've been F1 Blag. Good night.